Okay, welcome back to our tabletop project. We are getting ready to start pouring. We've got our top finished out the way we want to get it finished out. On our burning video, some people commented about what we had done with the finish here, and you can see how it turned out to the different squares. We used some stain. We did a stain and we burn it in, and if you look back through the other videos, you can see that. Click subscribe, follow us. You'll be able to see progress on this and other projects that we're working on. If you have any comments, feel free to drop them down there or just drop a hello. So we've got Promise Tabletop Epoxy Part A and Part B. You want to be sure to mix these in equal parts. We've got denatured alcohol. Took the denatured alcohol and completely wiped the table down. Made sure that it dried after we dammed it. And we are mixing. We've got it poured in a Lowe's bucket here. Lowe's is my hardware store of choice. Lowe's should pay me for saying that. But we usually go to Lowe's. Occasionally we'll go to Menards. But she's mixing it away. And it takes 8 minutes to mix, and then we need to scrape it down. We'll mix it for another 8 minutes. So it's a lot of mixing. We've got some brushes. We've got some gloves handy. Those always come in handy once we start this project. And we've got our heat gun to knock the bubbles out. And as you can see on the dam, we've used Lowe's tie-back tape. And that's going to help keep it from sticking to it when we pull the dam off and the table's done. On the underside of the table, we have caulked all the gaps. I'm going to crawl under here and show you. This table has quite a few gaps in it, so we've got it under here and we've caulked it all to make sure that we don't get a whole bunch running down on the floor. And this table is a big table. It's 4 foot by 8 foot. So we weren't going to carry it outside, so we brought in a tarp from Harbor Freight. The best place to buy cheap stuff. Cheap tarp from Harbor Freight. And we're literally going to do this table right in our dining room. Got some ventilation fans going, and that's what we're going to do. So she's going to keep mixing. We'll come back here in just a sec. And I've got the grill cam. We're still mixing. You want to make sure that when you get it all the way to the edges when you're mixing it. All the way to the edges. We've got a little silicone beater on this grill. All the way to the edges, all the way to the bottom. Make sure you get across the middle and everything. And we're going to keep mixing. We got a long way to go.
And we're still mixing.
Look at her technique. Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
And we're still mixing. And she had to change hands. We're still mixing. Got to mix a long time, and that product's going to warm up, and it should warm up, and that tells you that it's starting to set, starting to get ready. As long as you keep mixing it, it won't set up. And then you've got about, depending on the type of epoxy you're using, you've got about a 10-minute window to work with it before it starts getting tacky. Once it starts getting tacky, leave it alone, and you can only use the heat gun on it for about 10 more minutes, and then you're going to start to yellow it. So you got to be quick and careful. And we'll be mixing here for a while. Yep, she had to take a coffee break. We're mixing so much. It's a lot of mixing. And we're still mixing. So I took over for a moment. Again, 8 minutes. They recommend that you change containers. I have a technique where I don't change containers, but I would recommend that you change containers. Make sure you get them scraped all the way down. You have to have equal parts to make it set right. And then mix. And we're still mixing, and the battery is dead, so I'm going to change batteries, and we'll keep mixing. She's grabbing a battery, so while she grabs a battery, I'm still mixing. I'm just doing it manually. She'll grab me a new battery, and we'll be back to mixing. All right, we're juiced up again and mixing. I think we're down to only having just a few more minutes left, 2 or 3 more minutes, although with pausing, it won't look like that to you guys, but we're still mixing. All mixed up, got our product here. We're going to go ahead and do a pour. I'm going to pour, this is a seal coat. Usually you just brush it on, but since this is such a big space, we're going to pour it down the center of the table, and then we'll grab our brushes and do it, then brush it on. So I'm going to just pour this not as even as I can right down the center of the table. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Always makes you a little bit nervous because if I screwed up, I just ruined a big old table, but make sure it all gets out of there. And we're going to start brushing it here in a second. Okay, we're doing some brushing, and we've got these plastic sheets here, just thin plastic sheets, and we can move it around like that as well. We're gonna get this kind of spread out. We're kind of on a clock now. You can see she's spreading, I'm spreading. We want to get this layered out. So we'll be right back, but we're gonna get it spread out. All right, we've got our first coat poured on, and as you can see, some of it's running through onto the tarp below, but again, this is the first coat. We've got it brushed on, seal coat more or less, so we kind of expected those gaps. I've got my heat gun here. That's gonna help level it out and get rid of bubbles. And this heat gun needs to be replaced. Sounds like a dying cow. Before we do our flood pour, we're going to have to get a new heat gun. This one is on its last leg, as you can hear. But we worked this in until it started getting too tacky to work. And now we'll just let it dry, and then we'll mix up our actual flood coat and we'll flood it. So if this one's not super even, it's not a big deal because we're going to flood it and bring it up about, somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch is what we calculated for. So we'll come back. Okay, you'll be able to see what the heat gun does. Watch the bubbles, they'll kind of go away as we move along this. See them going away? You see it just knocks those bubbles right out of it. So get your heat gun on it and work it. Oh, you got about 10 minutes with the heat gun.